I give you greetings from my people over the mountains towards the west, and I'm honored to be here this morning, and I'm honored to be in your territory in this part of this beautiful province. I'm also really grateful and thankful to be able to come here to talk about some of the things that are really, really dear to my heart, and I think are really, really increasingly important to us as Aboriginal people and as Indigenous people from our lands. I really wanted to especially thank the elder who gave us the prayer this morning, and I know how important that is as a part of our lives as Indigenous people. Aboriginal people from our communities rely on our elders in many different ways, so I'm really honored to be here and have that kind of opening. I also want to thank the Mount Royal University for hosting this, and Virginia and Alvin for organizing and coordinating the things that you have going for you today, things that you'll be experiencing today. I want to talk more about some of the things that I think might be of interest to you. And I just want to talk to you in a regular way. I don't want to use a lot of your time up, because I know that you have a lot of high energy, and some of you have been on the bus for a while, but I have a few slides that I want to show you, but I mostly want to tell you a story about some of the reasons I think it's really important that you think about the different areas of science that you can get into, and how you might use that to collaborate with our traditional knowledge and science areas that belong to our people and that have been there and are still there, that you really need to think about. I think one of the things that I wanted to tell you as well, just in addition to the great introduction that Alvin gave, is that I've been friends with Alvin for a number of years. The way I met Alvin was work in the environmental areas, environmental justice areas, especially where Indigenous people are concerned. He's traveled all over the place, all over North America and different places to talk about those things. And I know that in a lot of ways there's a number of Indigenous people from all over North America who are really active and involved in that way. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. One part of my story is that I grew up in my community in a kind of a remote part of the reserve, I think an Indian reserve. We're part of a larger nation, the Okanagan Sioux Nation. We're part of the territory that's called the plateau, the interior plateau, and most of our culture relates to the river systems and the mountain systems. So we didn't have buffalo in that area, so we weren't people that followed the buffalo. We mostly stayed in one place, and we learned about all of the things that carried our food, carried all the things that were needed by our people. And according to geology, which is one area of science that is now starting to put together information that perhaps we didn't come across the Siberian Peninsula, that perhaps Indigenous peoples have been here before the Ice Age. So some of the archaeology that's being done is looking at that. But the recent archaeology about our people is that our people, the Sioux people, have been in the same place for at least 10,000 years. Now that's really remarkable when you think about it. when you think about the knowledge that gets accumulated about one place over 10,000 years and how that is embedded in the language and how that language expresses everything that happens on that land and everything, every way that we're connected to it. That description is, in our language, for instance, we have a word that describes the life force of the land, the living things on the land. And it can't really be translated in English. We use the word tamik. It doesn't mean the land and the land formations because it includes that. It doesn't mean the living things on the land, but it includes all of that. It really is talking about the spirit that keeps everything alive. And when you think about it from the science perspective, it's almost like asking, like our bodies, how does our body stay alive? How does it work? What is it that keeps us alive? And you could say, yeah, all these chemicals and all these things work together, but then there's a spirit. There's a consciousness that because of the whole thing and the way it works, we have a life and we have a consciousness. And if our body stopped producing that consciousness, the idea of that spirit, which is a part of the whole person, when it leaves, means that you can still have the body and all the chemicals there, but if it's not in motion, working the way that it's supposed to, that spirit is no longer there. And so when we think about, to me, that's how we think about the whole environment, so that it includes everything that's part of it, but it's more than that. It's the spirit of the life force of the land. So I wanted just to mention that because language, our languages are so important because they can look at those things and have a perspective on those things that's really different from the way Western science thinks about environment or about the dynamics of living systems. So I wanted just to start with that. Those are things that I really was concerned about earlier on when I was probably closer to your age, when I was at university. Like I said, I'm a fluent speaker, but I was also trained by a lot of different elders in looking at knowledge of our people and the philosophy of our people and why we as a people have to be clear about our role and our responsibility as human beings as a part of nature. So I was always really interested in it because of that one word and because of the way that we see how we're an essential part of that thing that is called nature or environment or the land. So I'm going to move to this first slide here. That's just a little bit about myself. So I'm going to have a series of questions here rather than answers for you and talk about it. So one of the questions that we might have as an indigenous person, which is what I had, was that whole area of science. Science is a relatively new area in terms of Western European thought. So we could ask, what is science? What do we mean by that? Is it about chemistry and chemicals and understanding how all these different chemicals work and what they are and what they might do? Is it about physics? Is it related to the physical world and how different things happen in the physical world? What causes light? What causes fire? What causes all of these different things that are, when you look at them, they happen, but then what are they about? What about biology? What are the different living things made up of? What is their biology? What kinds of chemicals and what kinds of cells and what kinds of molecules and what kinds of things can we find a way to describe quantities of things, or is it a way to describe how things are related to each other? How things, some things can be bigger or smaller, or some things can be faster or slower. All of those are math ideas. What about ecology? The way that if you look at out there, the difference between, say, plains and grasses on the plains and the high mountain forest, or a desert. What about why are they like the way they are, and the things that live in those areas, and how they have adapted to that specific area, whether it's dry or whether it's cold or whether it's hot or whether it's rainy like the coast. So all of those are areas of science. And if you think about it, Western science looks at it that particular way. There's specific areas of interest, you could say.